If you don't mind, I'd like to hear a little bit about your background. You've done this for a number of years.
Well,
and,
I hate
you've
to
gone
tell
through a lot
you.
of experiences.
Hate to tell you how many years, actually. It's over 50 years that I have been in the broadcast business. Started out at a small radio station in Worcester, and was there for about 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to Boston.
May I ask how old you were at the time?
I was a youngster.
Okay, that's close enough. That's close enough.
Just out of school, as a matter of fact, and came back to Boston along with 2 other radio friends of mine who became very well-known personalities in Boston. One was Frank Avrush, who became Bozo the Clown,
All right.
and then the great entertainer with Channel 5.
Right,
And the other fellow was Bill Harrington, who became a State House news correspondent for Channel 5. And a little-known fact, he was, when Bozo was out either sick or on location, his brother Nozo, the clown, was Bill Harrington.
Is that right?
So we all came back to Boston about the same time.
You must joke a lot about that.
Right. I went with BZ for a while, BZ Radio and television, and then I rejoined Frank and Bill at WHDH Radio and Channel 5 for quite a few years. And from that point, I actually got out of the business for a few years. My father-in-law had a construction business, and I went into that business for about 3 years and found out that I couldn't measure a stone or a 2x4 or anything. So I got back in the business again with an old friend of mine, Curt Gowdy, who owned WCCM in Lawrence. And I managed those stations for Curt Gowdy. We had an FM also, WCGY, up until the time that Pat Costa purchased WCCM, which was 1998, I believe. And then I came over with Pat and took over again the management of CCM. So that's it. BZ was 1956 to 1960. Some of the personalities, Carl DeSouza, who did the morning show. He's now deceased, unfortunately. Also, there was another fellow, Lindy Miller, who had a program on television at that particular time. Dick Tucker, who's now retired, he was there at that time also. And then over at Channel 5, of course, I mentioned Bill Harrington and Frank Avrush. Right. That was about 1960 till about 1968. And Jack Hines was there at the time. Right. Don Gillis was on television and radio at the time. Johnny Most did the Celtics games for WHDH radio at that particular time. And of course, Curt Gowdy. How can I forget Curt? Right. Curt was doing the Red Sox games then. And that's how we met, as a matter of fact. So you
must have had some fond memories of those.
Oh, yes. A lot of fond memories of both places, of both BZ and WHDH.
Any real tight moments or tense moments? Or?
Well, there's a couple of that I can recall at WBZ in 1956. The television tower, which at that time was in back of the studios on Soldiers Field Road. We had a hurricane in 1956. I think it was called Hurricane Carol. And that tower toppled over onto the second floor of the building. Fortunately, it didn't hurt anybody. So that was kind of a scary moment. And over on Morrissey Boulevard, where WHDH was located, I guess the biggest memory I have there was the assassination of John Kennedy. That took place while I was on the staff at WHDH, and the days following that, how difficult it was for a lot of us to do the news. A little background with Bruce Arnold,
I guess it's not unusual.
Our program director, who's shouting in the background there to show you just how active things are here.
It is very active, and we have the door open, and
so it doesn't matter. So people understand this is a radio station.
That's exactly
right.
Conversations all over the place,
right?
As long as there's no swearing.
Yeah, right.
Getting back to Mr. Gowdy, how did you actually meet him?
Well, we met at WHDH. He was doing the Red Sox games.
Okay.
On WHDH
did you
radio.
Do any of the Red Sox
no, I did some color with Johnny Most on Celtics basketball.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and color with I can't even remember his name, who was doing the play-by-play on the Bruins. Before I moved into the management side, And once I did that in 1964, becoming the program director, I gave up all my air work. And that was the last time I really did any regular air work was 1964. I've done from time to time air work here at CCM, but basically I gave up my broadcasting career to take a management position in 1964. And it was in those years that I met Curt.
Right.
And we kept the friendship going. And out of a clear blue sky in 1973, I'd gone back into the business. I was managing a station in New Bedford. Curt called me up and he said, I need a manager for my station in Lawrence. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, let's sit down and talk. And
Wow, that's great.
25 odd years later, I've been with him all that time. Lawrence actually was the first radio station that he ever purchased in 1963. He had stations in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He had stations in West Palm Beach, Florida, also in Laramie, Wyoming, because Curt is a Wyoming boy. He was born in Wyoming, went to the University of Wyoming.
Now that you're here, and you've been here at WCCM again for how long?
Well, let's see, now we're going into the 4th year
Yeah.
that Pat Costa has owned the station.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that Pat changed very, very little about WCCM. It's basically the same radio station that it's always been since its beginning. Actually, CCM is over 50 years old.
Wow.
It went on the air in 1947. It's only had 3 owners. George Jasper put the station on the air back in 1947 as a brand new radio station.
Mhm.
It had never existed before. The frequency became available from the FCC 800. Jasper put it on the air, and Mrs. Jasper sold it to Curt Gowdy in 1963, and Pat Costa, along with the Eagle Tribune, purchased the station in 1998, I believe, 1998. So there's only 3 owners for this radio station, which is very unusual, and the station is over 50 years old.
Do you think being an AM station that it hurts simply because of AM, or do you think it still has a good market?
You know, I think we're probably an exception to the rule, because AM was hurt badly by FM, of course, because of FM's ability to broadcast in stereo and play music nonstop. AM was hurt, but coincidentally, Larry, in Boston, and we're part of the Boston market, 3 of the top-rated stations consistently in Arbitron have been AM stations, which is kind of unusual.
Wow.
That's WEEI, which was formerly WHDH, WRKO, and the other station, WBZ, of course. They have always, WBZ, by the way, AM is the #1 rated station in Boston, and has been consistently.
Do you follow the same formats, or?
Well, our CCM format is similar to WBZ's format. We're very unusual for our size radio station, in a medium-sized market, we do a lot of local broadcasting. Most stations our size, for economic reasons, went over to satellites and did very little local. They still do very little local. Most of their programming comes via satellite from all over the United States. We're happy to say that a good deal of our programming, probably 75% of it, originates here at WCCM. So we're very proud that we are a community-oriented local radio station. That's our claim to fame.